Well, we can stick with looking ahead to Rishi Sunak's economic update on Wednesday. Jobs, 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 according to Matt Hancock. We're joined now from Sky by a man with a list of demands for the Chancellor, the SNP's Westminster leader, Ian Blackford. Thank you for being on the show. What is it that you are hoping to see from the Chancellor next week?
Well, there's a 5-point plan that we have, Sophie. So we're asking for a significant investment from the government into the economy. We, as politicians, as governments, we crash the economy in order to save people's health. We've got a responsibility to invest for recovery, to invest to see jobs coming back. And I'm asking that the Chancellor takes similar measures to what we saw in Germany, where there's been a 4% of GDP investment. That would mean for the UK about £80 billion to kickstart the economy. We have to give people hope. Secondly, we need to see the devolution of powers to Scotland so that we have the powers to deal with the virus that we need here in Scotland. We also need to extend the furlough scheme for many of the reasons that have been in the package that you've just had there. Many businesses are going to see a difficult period ahead of them, and we need to support businesses through that, hospitality and tourism sector, for example. So the furlough scheme must remain in place for those that need it, and it must be done on the basis of a four-nation approach to that. We also need to see investment to deal with child poverty, and I've backed calls that we've had from the Resolution Foundation, for example, for a £20 increase in the child element of universal credit and working tax credits. And then finally, to see a reduction in VAT for a fixed period in order to, again, kickstart the economy, but also to accompany that a 2 pence reduction in national insurance contributions to protect jobs. So we really need a robust package to give confidence to businesses, to individuals and communities that government will play its part to kickstart the economy. We need to recognise the scale of the challenge. The House of Commons Library has indicated the potential increase in unemployment to 3.8 million. That is a price which is not worth paying for a crisis that's not the fault of individuals or businesses. Government has to show leadership. And if I may say so, one final point, Sophie. What we saw last week from the Prime Minister was a missed opportunity. And if we can contrast what's happened with quantitative easing, rightly, there's been £100 billion investment through the Bank of England in the month of June. We need to have the same scale of evidence of action from the government and fiscal measures to match what we've done in the monetary field.
OK, well, you pretty fully set out there what you're hoping to see. We'll find out on Wednesday if any of your demands have been met. Just to pick up on what you were saying there about devolution, Nicola Sturgeon saying that she was underwhelmed by some of the infrastructure spending the Prime Minister pledged this week because it didn't include any Barnett money for Scotland. Now, some people might be thinking that you're effectively asking for more money, more investment to deal with coronavirus, but at the same time having a more stringent lockdown in Scotland, which could exacerbate the economic hit further. I mean, isn't that just kind of by asking for, more money, but also a longer lockdown? Is that not just having your cake and eating it?
No, it's not. It's about accepting the responsibilities of leadership, and we can see that reflected in the Sunday Times poll today. A fantastic rating for the First Minister, plus 60, minus 39 for Boris Johnson. And I think people are reflecting on the kind of measures that the Scottish Government have taken. And frankly, when we look at the evidence and you see the prevalence rate of the virus, it's a fifth at the rate in Scotland that it is in England. And I think that caution that we have had in Scotland has been rewarded by that improved performance. But I have to say,
then if you have more cautious, but the point, I guess, was saying that if you have a more cautious lockdown, then the economic hit will be bigger, and yet you can ask for more money to deal with it.
Well, I would suggest that if we have a second wave, then the economic hit would be even more damaging. So what we're trying to do is to protect the interests of businesses, protect public health, but make sure that we can come out of this. But we need the flexibility to do so. And I think the whole point about what we see from devolution is that we don't have the powers to deal with the COVID crisis the way that we should. We want to make sure that we can protect people in our industries, in the tourism sector and the hospitality sector. And if the government is going to take away that job retention programme in October, we need to make sure that we can support people here. And I think, rightly, people in Scotland are contrasting the leadership of our First Minister and Boris Johnson, who seems to be bumbling his way through this crisis.
Now, you were saying there that Scotland has got relatively low infection rates. And yesterday, Scotland didn't record any new deaths from coronavirus, only 11 new cases. If you continue to suppress the virus in Scotland, would it be a good idea to actually stop people travelling from England or Wales to Scotland to try and slow the spread?
Well, of course, we don't want to stop people travelling. We want to make sure that we can open up as much as we can. But I think it is fair to say that there is a degree of frustration that we haven't had the conversations with all four governments in the United Kingdom when it comes to the quarantine regulations, for example, and those coming into the United Kingdom. I mean, the fact is I've highlighted and you've conceded the prevalence rate here is much lower. So we need to look at those coming in here and the kind of risks that are there. But any decision that will be taken by the Scottish Government will be based on the scientific advice that we get and about keeping people safe. But let me say that Scotland is a welcoming country. Of course, we want to welcome people here. Our tourism industry is important to us, it's vital, but it's about taking the right decisions at the right time based on the scientific evidence.
So just to be clear then, if the scientists advising the Scottish Government say that actually you would be keeping people safer if you close the border, you'd do it?
Well, I don't think we should be looking at emotive language about closing the border. There are checks that we can put in place. This is about keeping people safe. And I have to say that...
So people travelling from England could be forced to quarantine then? Would that be a fair way of putting it?
The simple fact of the matter is we have had reasonable success in driving down the incidence of the virus over the course of the last few months. It's been hard won. And of course, we have to take the appropriate measures to make sure that we can continue to see that. But we'll do that in a respectful way, based on the evidence that we see. And of course, we will always try to do things in cooperation with other parts of the United Kingdom.
OK, now pubs in England opened their doors yesterday. It was interesting reading some reports from researching this interview saying that pub owners on the English side of the border have said that up to a third of their bookings are actually from Scottish people travelling there. Are you worried about Scots going to drink in pubs in England and then coming back?
Well, what we did over the course of the last couple of days is we've changed the guidance for people because people weren't able to travel any more than 5 miles. That's changed so people can travel. I'd simply say to everybody, whether you're in Scotland, England, Wales or Northern Ireland, all of us have got a responsibility to make sure that we're doing what we can to drive the virus down. Yes, if people want to go to pubs, they're permitted to do so, but please ensure that you enforce the rules on social distancing and the lockdown rules that are there. I think everyone's got a responsibility to behave in a responsible manner. I understand that people want to go out, and of course we are going to be in the situation that beer gardens in Scotland are going to be open. But what we are doing is that we're doing this in a cautious way, on an evidence-based approach to make sure that we keep people safe as rightly we take off some of the restrictions that people want to see come off.
OK, thank you so much for being on the programme today. Thank you.